coordinate a lot of events together, and I could see a miscommunication happening right away, so, yeah, that makes sense to do that.
Yeah, because Lisa does serve on the rodeo club, and she's, you know, if you look at the bylaws, the fair board, she's our rodeo liaison. So she serves on both boards there so that she can bring, you know, what's going on with the rodeo club, so we have that open line of communication. It's worked out well to
Yep.
do that.
I think that's a requirement in your bylaws, isn't it, that there's supposed to be
Right.
someone from the
From rodeo.
rodeo association to be on.
Yeah, and someone
Liaison.
from 4-H,
Yep.
just to help out with that, just so we keep those lines of communication open, do that,
Yep.
so.
We should have, when we get the well, even now, we're working on it, getting a new website, you're working on that. But we should have standards for the rental agreement, expectations of or lease agreements, the leaser, the leasee, what the cost is, what it includes, that kind of thing. Especially if we combine these so that Extension has exactly what those details are to refer people to your board.
We have that on the fairgrounds website.
Oh, perfect.
We have that rental agreement on the fairgrounds website.
Okay, thank you.
So it's there, townsandfairgrounds.com. So you can read that in the meeting plan.
townsandfairgrounds.com. All right.
We have the calendar on there showing who has it rented when. And then the rental agreement, and then there's a link for fair board and for rodeo club, rodeo board on there,
Nice.
so. The rodeo club and the fair board shares the cost of maintaining that website.
So do you have a meeting with the Fair Board to review this and to throw out some more
We have a fair
ideas? Or
board meeting scheduled for November 14th.
would you be willing to, one thing we talked about again with Val and Allison last week was Allison needs somebody sooner
Right.
than that. Are you good with moving forward with the changes she made and the changes we talked about today? So that we can start the advertising process and then the interviewing process? Or would you guys be willing to hold a special meeting so that we could get the feedback from the board to Allison ASAP so that we can start that process?
Yeah, I can get in touch with all the board members to see what their thoughts are, but, you know, this second, I guess what I call take two that Allison did, you know, I think it looks a lot better than the one last week.
Sure.
I'm in more agreement with that,
Okay.
so, as chairman, so.
Could you maybe get back with her like this week?
Mhm.
Just because I know she's pretty stressed about not having an assistant.
Right.
And then the process takes a couple of weeks, sometimes 6. So the sooner we can get started, the sooner we can get her some help. Thanks.
Anything else, or do we?
Not from me, John, thank you.
Were you gonna stay for the, is Sean coming for this 11 o'clock? He's there? So are you gonna, can you stay for this plan they've got here, John? or- Okay,
Another, what, 15 minutes or so?
yeah. You're up, Sean.
We were gonna text it.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, Sean. Okay, Sean, go ahead with the
Oh, sure.
WWC Engineering Update Fair Master Plan progress.
All right. I'm gonna start with some handouts.
Thank you.
So today's just kind of an update on where we're at with the master plan.
Could you go to the
Oh, yep, sorry. And this is official. Okay. again, today's just an update on where we're at with the Fairgrounds Master Plan. What you have in front of you is our proposal to select some team members for prioritization of projects for the master plan. Basically, if you look at it, I think there were three basic ways to look at it. We've got a bunch of input from the public and different users and members that utilize the fairgrounds facilities. So we could base it on number of votes, which that's maybe not entirely scientific. You know, we could be weighted one way or the other. And some people may not have had the opportunity to put that input in. We could use team members, and actually B and C are both team members. And what we had proposed was one county commissioner, one member of the trust board, one member of the rec board, one member of the rodeo club, one member of the 4-H club, and one member of the fair board. So 6 members total, right? Basically gives the major users or people who have responsibility for that facility a seat at the table to make those decisions. So item B would be, you would look at each priority on the list, every project, and rank it with a 1, 2, or 3, 1 being a low priority, 2 being a medium priority, and 3 being a high priority. That's a pretty simple way of doing it, but very effective because you can actually assign a point number to each project and that they kind of fall out that way as far as ranking, so that obviously the project with the highest number is the number 1 priority and so forth. The third option would be to use a weighting factor, based it on usage, project cost, public health and safety, and benefit to Broadwater County citizens. That's a lot more complicated and a lot harder way to look at things. So our recommendation would be to use alternative B. We did run that through the trust board, and I've talked to several members of user groups. They agreed that alternative B would be probably the best way to go. So I guess what I'm trying to get from you guys today is a yay or nay on which alternative that you'd like to see going forward with that, since this is ultimately your project, and give you a little summary of what we've done to date or since the last update. I know Commissioner Fulford's done a pretty good job of getting the commission apprised of what's going on throughout the process, because he's been at almost all the meetings, which I appreciate, by the way, so thank you.
I got a question, so on this ranking, I mean, I see how it's supposed to work. What's your vision and sorrow if they rank a particular project towards the top,
Sure.
but they don't have the funding to?
It's
So
based off of funding, right? So this would be a prioritization. It's like a capital improvements plan per se. It doesn't mean that the number 1 priority absolutely has to get funded first.
That's what I want
So
everybody to understand.
and there will be language in that master plan that says that, and it would be not in your best interest to do that. You would want to cherry pick. You know, you obviously want to stay on the upper end of those projects with your funding. But there's going to be some low-cost ones that are way up there that you can just cherry pick right out of there. It might be 8th on the list, but say it's a $10,000 project and you have money from a source to get it done. Then you get it done and you cross it off the list, right? Yeah. The priority absolutely would be to get things done out there.
Sure.
And this is just a way to kind of help people decide which might be a little more important if they have similar economic considerations, right? Or similar usage or whatever. So yeah, if you had 2 projects that were, say, of equal value, and yet one was ranked way high and the other was ranked way low, you would probably try to pick the one that was ranked a little higher. Just a tool in helping those decisions as you go forward. But again, just a tool, it's not the end all. I don't know if we need a vote on that or just a consensus or however you guys want to deal with that, but that's what we would propose to do.
I think simple is usually better and
Yeah.
more clear to all the players. So I concur with B and would be happy to make a motion or engage in more discussion, whatever you guys want.
How do you feel from the 4-H side?
My only question or suggestion, whenever it comes to committees and boards, an even number can lead to deadlock. My suggestion would be to either add a seventh person somehow, just, I think it needs to be an odd number. I think otherwise you could get in such a stalemate on anything, and not
Sure.
foreseeing that, but
Sure.
that would be my only suggestion,
Sure.
would be to make it an odd number.
That's a good idea.
It shouldn't matter in the end because of the rating system,
Right.
right? And so, I mean, we can add one or take away, and that's no big deal to me. But in the end, it shouldn't matter because everybody's gonna be ranking things differently. So your points should not necessarily, and if they do, then maybe that's to the main users, that just means they have a similar priority.
Yeah,
That's-
it would
that's
only
all.
be an issue if it was things that were gonna come to like a vote. And if you don't
Yeah.
foresee things.
And I
in a
don't
vote
see
situation-
anything coming to a vote with this particular way of handling, because we're just, again, prioritizing projects.
But yeah, other than, I think having a smaller group of designated individuals,
That's
I
what
think
I'm-
you're gonna accomplish.
That's what I'm trying to do, is kind
That's
of create a, yeah, that's exactly what I called you about. Yeah.
Is the city represented on that?
They are not,
And they're part of the owner of that property,
but
correct?
they could be, yeah.
You know
That-
what, it
if
is
we're
the
gonna-
city, county fairgrounds. I think that's a great
If
point.
we're going to add one, that's where we should add it.
Okay.
Be my recommendation.
Okay.
I
And I
think,
could certainly put them on there.
I think that's a really good
Okay.
idea. Sends the wrong message if we don't.
City's on there.
Perfect.
So if you guys are in agreement with this, I will come out with an email in the next couple of days to the entire user group, asking them to select one person from their respective organization to act as a representative for that organization in looking at these items.
Are you guys good?
I'm good.
Okay, fair enough. We'll move forward. As far as progress summary, we did have our initial public meeting. That was our public input session essentially. That was held Thursday, September 26th. I think we ended up having about 15 or 20 people there, which was probably a little more than I expected, which was great. We've continued to reach out to the user groups. I did get a list from Lisa Larson of all the users over the last 3 years. So I've just kind of prioritized those based off of the size of the group, and, we'll continue to work through those. Even though we've already engaged in an architect, been out to the site. So we were out there last Friday with the architect, measured up all the buildings, kind of engaged them on some of the projects that I already know are gonna be on the list. As far as, looking at the 4-H building, looking at the multi-use building, potential sale barn, those kind of things. So I guess what I see is we'll continue that outreach process, but I don't anticipate too many new things that are gonna show up on the list. So just because we've gotten quite a bit of feedback already. We also have advertised in the paper for a couple of weeks, a link to our SurveyMonkey, so people can get on there and, kind of do it at their leisure at home or wherever, and get their input there as well. And we still have a bunch of cards that people can use as well, so. But I would anticipate our input will end after that SurveyMonkey closes primarily, and then we'll move on with the master plan and getting our priorities completed and the master plan written up, and then we'll have our semi-quasi final meeting, public meeting sometime towards the end of November, and to discuss alternatives and outcomes and projects and those kind of things. Other than that, is there any questions that you guys have for me?
Sean, you mentioned the Monkey when it expires. That's the end of public comment on this. When is that?
Yeah, more or less, that'll be, And I have to look at the advertisement date, so I'm not exactly sure, but it should be in the Broadwater Reporter for at least another week, I think,
Okay.
something like that. So that's what I've got for you today. Also on the backside, you'll notice our most recent list of identified needs. So, front and back.
I appreciate that this is on one piece of paper, but it's really small font.
Sorry. It is very small font. I can email this too if you guys would like to take a
This
look
is
at it.
fine.
Just try to keep it in that. I could move this to an 11 by 17 sheet for future use. It'd probably be easier to read.
Well, that's what they make
Apologize.
cheaters for.
Yeah, I understand that as well.
No, this has been some good work, Sean, thank you.
Yeah, the rec board had this discussion last night, so they're expecting your call.
Excellent.
Okay.
I think I discussed it with Adam, so
Yeah.
I try to reach out to most. I know some people haven't, but I just wanted to kind of individually kind of get some input on this before we brought it forward to everybody so that we had everybody on the same page. Okay,
All right, thank you.
all right, thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks.
You bet.
Thanks, Sean, for staying. So, I just wanted to make sure you knew about that plan. So 11:15, Nicole Brown, Community Development Coordinator, Walsh, family transfer.
I guess the Walshes are out of town, is that right?
Doesn't matter, they're gonna be
Okay.
on the phone and she has already confirmed that with them.
Okay. You want me to go grab her?
Yeah, she's right in the door.
Is she? Okay.
Oh, she's talking to Sean.
Hi there.
Hello.
You ready for me?
This is the Walsh family transfer. We met on this last Thursday. COS review committee.
Do we still have Walsh's calling in?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll actually call them.
Okay,
I did follow up with the title company per our conversation on Thursday. Do you want me to call John first, or do you want me to tell you what the title company had to say?
I don't have a preference.
Okay, so we spoke with the title company actually this morning. Dal was out of the office on Friday, and she's holding a deed to transfer Tract A, is what it was being called, from Greer to Gifford. But she can't since the parcel's not created.
Who's Gifford? Sorry.
The people who are currently living there on this parcel. Greer
Okay.
is the daughter of Walsh, who Walsh is family transferring to Greer.
Nikki Greer.
Nikki Greer,
Okay.
correct,
To the current renters and it's a deed.
correct. And I don't know that they're renting, I don't know, if they're renting, leasing, making payments to purchase. I just know that the title company had said they are waiting to finalize the deed for the transfer of Tract A from Greer to Gifford.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. As we spoke earlier, the Walshes are out of state. Are both of these phones live? Seem to
They
be.
were
Yeah.
last time I looked at them.
Well, let's just try it. This one appears to, unless I break it. This one doesn't have the buttons on it that identify what, they're for. Nope, I don't know that this one is working. Let's see. Oh, sorry, that was much louder than I intended.
Hello?
Hi, is this John?
Yes, it is.
Hi, John. This is Nicole Brown. I have you on speakerphone in the county commissioners meeting to discuss your family transfer.
Okay?
So here today, I have Commissioner Obert, Commissioner Delger, Commissioner Folkford.
Okay.
Hi, John, this is Laura.
Hi. Hello?
Yeah, we're still here.
Okay. The phone service isn't the greatest down here. So sometimes it just, you'll be talking and that's it.
So you have the affidavit, you have the family transfer documents, and I believe DEQ is also with that affidavit there. They did do DEQ on the parcel that they're looking to transfer to, that the Walshes are looking to transfer to their daughter, Nikki Greer.
And who are the other folks that are there now? What was the last name again?
Gifford.
So is this the affidavit to not sell the property within 2 years?
Correct.
Yep. So I guess that's the first thing that I see happen, right there, is right? We sign an affidavit not to sell it within 2 years.
Exactly, that's, that's what's been signed and notarized, that it won't be sold for 2 years.
But then, you get in a conversation with the title company, they're waiting to close.
They've been waiting since July of last year, according to the title
To the
company.
Giffords, right?
Correct. From Greer to Gifford.
So if you transfer this, then does the title company hold that paper for 2 more years, or do they? So the
No.
affidavit is no good?
Well, and this was part of the discussion that we had when we first adopted this affidavit. I don't recall the date that we put it into use, but, it's a tool we can use. Do we have authority? I don't know where our authority lies to require them to hold it for 2 years. That paperwork, it's my understanding, is not recorded. Is that correct, Ann? Okay. So the affidavit is signed and notarized by the gifter and the receiver of the parcel. But it's not recorded.
And this driveway is a recorded access, a recorded easement, or is this a shared driveway?
I don't know what it's recorded as. I don't know what the previous survey shows it as.
And our requirement on access, we can't have access on a family land transfer, right? We can't do anything about access on a
Correct.
family land transfer.
That's correct. And I'm sorry, I gave that to you, I think, upside down. Well, north is the other way. You're right, it's correct. No, so with any exemption, you can't deny it based on the access, whether there is access or no access. What you're tasked with is determining whether or not this is an evasion of Montana Subdivision and Planning Act.
Was there also a question on how they received DEQ approval to put in a septic system without an address? That
Not necessarily the DEQ side of it, but the septic permit.
Permit, I guess, maybe that's more correct, yeah.
And I did not look at that permit to see what they were using for an address or who applied for the permit, for the septic permit. So I'm not going to speak to that because I don't know what they did use. But I know in the past, the previous sanitarian would require that the address was assigned prior to issuing a septic permit.
So if we were to address this, how would you assign an address to this?
So if indeed all three homes, because it's my understanding that there are 2 homes currently utilizing this shared driveway, in order to put a third home on this driveway, it would be necessary to name the driveway. So not necessarily bring it up to any spec, because I have no authority to do so through the exemption process. But for my 911 database and my addressing system, they would be required to name that driveway. And so that each home that accessed off of that driveway would have, I'm just using names here, but like 123 Doe Street, or whatever they would come up with.
Well, I guess to me it's evasion of subdivision, because you already have everything in line for the sale already. So I don't see where where it qualifies for family land transfer. So was this septic permit was issued without an address?
Possibly. I haven't seen the septic permit, so maybe they put one on there. I did not issue an address. But I can't say that blank wasn't filled in on the septic permit application because I don't have it.
Yeah.
If you want me to go up and get it, I sure can. It'll just take me a few minutes.
Yeah, how about electricity? Isn't electricity all supposed to have before it's put in, supposed to have an
Yes.
address?
So John, this is Mike Delger. What did you use for an address for the electrical and for the septic?
Post office box. And when we applied for the septic, Julie did not require one. We used the original address of 78 Jack Farm. As far as a physical address. Mailing address is Post Office Box 340.
Thank you.
I would concur that I see this also as an evasion, being a stickler for policy, looking at the deed that's outstanding with the title company. Makes that pretty clear in my mind.
I'll agree with the other 2 commissioners. I think that this is an evasion of subdivision as well.
Any further discussion? Any other comments? I guess we'll take a vote then. Is there, or make a motion to approve or disapprove the Walsh family transfer?
Guess I'll make a motion to disapprove the Walsh family transfer this time.
Is there a second?
I will second with a friendly amendment based on criteria that it appears to be an evasion of the subdivision and plating act.
And I'll accept that friendly amendment.
Motion's been made and seconded and amended to not approve the Walsh family transfer. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. So, I guess the question now is what happens here? I mean, we've got an illegal lot with, or an unplatted lot.
So it's unplatted, that does not mean that the septic permit can't be valid because it was greater than 20 acres when they applied for it and put it in. So we're copacetic there. They can continue living there and occupying that space, they just can't buy the parcel because the parcel is not created.
Sure.
Does that make sense? Because there's no
So
deed recorded
can-
creating the parcel.
Can they go through the subdivision process and
Absolutely.
can complete it that way?
Absolutely.
I guess that would be my suggestion for the Walshes.
And then we can address the shared driveway through
Right.
that process, which
Exactly.
alleviates problems in the future.
With law enforcement and emergency services and, yes.
So,
Okay.
Can you shove those across to me? And I will keep them in the file. Thank you.
You're
Okay.
welcome.
Don't have long enough arms.
And it wouldn't be seemly to crawl on the table.
All right, we're done with John.
Yes,
All right, John, did you get all that?
thank you.
Nicole?
Not really, you guys, it's kind of hard the way we were set up, and it's just the way it is. So what happened? Disapproved?
It was disapproved, yes.
Where do we go from here?
The option would be to continue with the subdivision process. What else?
Essentially, that's.
I guess that's probably it. That's our suggestion.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, there's no sense getting into a discussion on filming. If I was there, we'd discuss it some more, but that's fine. Okay?
You bet.
All right.
All right, goodbye.
Yes.
Tim with Redot. Just real quick clarification for purpose of this meeting. Where is this transfer / division located in the county?
On Jack Farm Road, just east of the Montana ditch, the drainage ditch, the deeper drainage ditch.
Thank you.
So it would be 11:30 with Mary Hendrickson. She has canceled that.
That is correct.
So is there any other further business to come before the commissioners? If not, we will adjourn at 11:34. Could I see those two claims paid